Alright, let's get into something that I know a lot of you have felt, but maybe haven't fully understood yet. You know that feeling when you'd rather be alone in your own space than in a crowd of people. When being surrounded by noise, opinions, and energy drains you, but solitude feels like home. It's like a sanctuary, a place where you can actually breathe. Now, if this resonates with you, you might just be walking the path of a chosen one. But let's break this down a bit, because being a chosen one isn't some magical title you wear on your chest like a superhero. It's not about being superior or better than anyone else. It's about carrying a responsibility, a mission, something deep within you that sets you apart. And here's where it gets interesting. Most chosen ones, whether they realize it or not, gravitate towards isolation over crowds. Why? Because crowds are distracting. They pull you away from your inner world where the real work is happening. When you're alone, it's like the noise of the world quiets down. You can hear your own thoughts, feel your own energy, and connect to something bigger than yourself. In isolation, you're able to tune into the subtle whispers of the universe, those messages that get drowned out in the chaos of daily life. You might start to feel things you can't explain: an intuition, a pull, a sense of knowing that doesn't come from books or other people, but from somewhere deep within you. That's the universe speaking to you.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
And here's the thing, most people don't get it. They think preferring isolation is weird or antisocial. But what they don't understand is that for a chosen one, isolation isn't about withdrawing from the world, it's about reconnecting with the source of your power. It's about tuning into the frequency of your soul's purpose. Crowds? They can be fun, sure, but they're also filled with energy that isn't always aligned with yours. And when you're on a path as significant as yours, you can't afford to be distracted by the noise of the world. Now, let me ask you something. When you're alone, what do you feel? Do you feel at peace, or does it make you uncomfortable? Because here's a truth that most people don't talk about. The chosen ones need isolation, and not just to recharge their energy, but to face themselves. Solitude can be intense. It's where you confront your deepest thoughts, your fears, your doubts. But more importantly, it's where you meet your true self. And that's why isolation is both a gift and a challenge. You see, being chosen means you're constantly evolving. You're not static. You're on a journey, and that journey requires a lot of introspection, a lot of self-work. And that's why the universe pulls you towards isolation. It's preparing you, shaping you, guiding you towards your purpose. When you're alone, you're not just resting, you're transforming. Every moment of solitude is an opportunity for growth, for deeper understanding, for aligning yourself with your mission. But here's something even deeper to consider. Why do you think the universe calls you into isolation? Why does it separate you from the crowd? Because not everyone is meant to walk with you on this path. The chosen ones often walk alone, not because they're better than others, but because their journey requires it. The things you're meant to do, the wisdom you're meant to unlock, can only be accessed in the silence of your own company. The crowds, they're filled with distractions. They push you to conform, to fit in, to follow the paths that everyone else is on. But you're not like everyone else. You've always known that, haven't you? Even if you couldn't quite put it into words, you felt it deep down. This sense that you're meant for something different, something bigger. And that's why isolation feels so right to you. It's where you're free to be yourself without the pressure of outside expectations. But here's the question you really need to ask yourself. Are you willing to embrace that solitude fully? Are you willing to go deeper into it, to use it as a tool for your growth rather than seeing it as a burden? Because once you shift your perspective, everything changes. You start to see isolation not as something that separates you from the world, but as something that connects you more deeply to your purpose, to your soul's calling. When you're in isolation, you're not alone. You're with yourself, and that's a powerful thing. You're with the universe, with the energy that's guiding you, shaping you, preparing you for what's to come. But it's up to you to make the most of that time. It's up to you to use that solitude to dive deeper into yourself, to explore the depths of your being, to uncover the wisdom that's waiting for you. All right, now that we've established how isolation is a key part of your journey as a chosen one, let's dive deeper into why this solitude is so transformative. You see, the universe works in ways that aren't always obvious. When you're in isolation, it's not just about being physically alone. It's about undergoing a silent evolution, a transformation that most people around you can't even see. But you feel it, don't you? You sense that something within you is changing, growing, evolving, and it's happening in those quiet moments when no one else is around. When you're alone, you have the space to reflect on everything. Your experiences, your thoughts, your feelings, everything comes into sharper focus. In crowds, you might find yourself reacting, adapting to other people's energy, putting on masks to fit in or make others comfortable. But in isolation, there's no one to perform for. There's no one to impress or hide from. It's just you, raw and real. And in that space, you start to peel back the layers of who you thought you were, revealing the truth of who you really are. I think about it. How many times have you had a profound realization about yourself, your life, or your purpose when you were alone? Those moments of clarity don't usually come when you're surrounded by noise and distractions. They come in the stillness, when your mind is quiet enough to hear the voice of your soul. That's the magic of isolation. It strips away the noise, the distractions, the external influences, and leaves you with nothing but the truth. But here's the thing, transformation isn't always comfortable. In fact, it's often downright painful. When you're in isolation, you're forced to confront parts of yourself that you might have been avoiding. Old wounds, fears, insecurities, they all rise to the surface when there's no one else around to distract you from them. And that's why so many people avoid solitude. It's not the loneliness they're afraid of, it's the truth that comes with it. But as a chosen one, you don't shy away from that truth. You embrace it because you know that it's through facing those uncomfortable parts of yourself that you grow. Every time you confront a fear, every time you sit with your discomfort, instead of running from it, you're evolving. You're shedding old layers, old beliefs, old patterns that no longer serve you, and in their place, you're building something new, something stronger, more aligned with your true self. And here's where the real wisdom comes in. This transformation isn't just for you. The universe has chosen you for a reason. Your growth, your evolution, it's not just about your own personal journey. It's about preparing you for something bigger. The wisdom you gain in isolation, the strength you build, the clarity you find, it's all leading you towards your purpose. You're being shaped into the person you need to be to fulfill the mission that's been placed on your soul. But here's the deep question I want you to sit with. What are you becoming in your solitude? Who are you evolving into? Because the truth is, isolation is not just a passive experience. It's an active process. You're not just sitting there waiting for something to happen to you. You're creating your own transformation, moment by moment, thought by thought. So what are you choosing to become in those quiet moments? What are you building within yourself? This is where the real power of isolation lies. It's not just about being alone. It's about using that time to consciously shape yourself into the person you're meant to be. It's about recognizing that this solitude is a gift, a sacred space where you can do the deep inner work that's necessary for your growth. And once you start to see isolation in this way, everything changes. You stop feeling like you're missing out on something by not being in the crowd. You stop feeling like you're disconnected from the world. Instead, you realize that isolation is where the real connection happens. It's where you connect with yourself, with your purpose, with the universe. It's where you become who you're meant to be. Now, let's take this even further. We've talked about how isolation is a tool for transformation, a space where you're evolving into your true self. But here's the next level of understanding. Isolation is preparing you for something bigger than yourself. It's not just about your personal growth, it's about the impact you're meant to have on the world. You see, the universe doesn't choose people at random. If you're being pulled into isolation, if you feel that constant need to retreat from the crowd, it's because you're being prepared for a sacred purpose. There's a mission on your soul, something that only you can accomplish. And the solitude you've been experiencing, that's your training ground. It's where you're being shaped into the person who can carry out that mission. But here's the challenge. Most people don't realize that their isolation is part of a bigger plan. They see it as a curse, something that separates them from the world. But as a chosen one, you have to shift your perspective. You have to see that your isolation is actually connecting you to the world in a deeper way. It's giving you the space to gain the wisdom, the clarity, the strength you'll need to fulfill your purpose. I think about it. Every great spiritual leader, every person who has made a profound impact on the world, has gone through a period of isolation. Jesus spent 40 days in the desert. Buddha meditated under the Bodhi tree for days. These periods of solitude weren't just random, they were necessary. They were times of deep introspection, of transformation, of preparation. And that's exactly what's happening to you. The world needs your gifts, your wisdom, your unique perspective. But before you can share that with the world, you have to fully embody it. And that's what isolation is for. It's where you integrate all the lessons you've learned, all the experiences you've had. It's where you refine your gifts and align yourself with your purpose. So when you emerge from this period of solitude, you're ready to step into the world as the person you were always meant to be. And here's the deep question I want you to ask yourself. What is the world asking of you? What is your sacred purpose? Because once you understand that, your time in isolation will make so much more sense. You'll start to see it not as something that's keeping you from the world, but as something that's preparing you for the world. But here's the thing, not everyone will understand your journey. Not everyone will see the value in your solitude. Some people might even criticize you for it, thinking you're avoiding life or running away from reality. But as a chosen one, you have to trust that your path is different. You're not here to follow the crowd. You're here to lead, to guide, to bring something new into the world. And that requires a different kind of journey. So, the next time you find yourself in isolation, remember this, you're not alone. You're being guided, shaped, and prepared for something much bigger than you can imagine. And when the time comes for you to step into the world, you'll be ready. You'll have the wisdom, the strength, and the clarity to fulfill your purpose. So embrace your solitude, because it's not just a phase, it's part of your sacred journey. All right, we've come to the final part of this journey. We've talked about how isolation is a space for transformation, how it shapes you into who you're meant to be, and how it prepares you for your sacred purpose. But now, let's talk about what happens when you're ready to re-enter the world. Because as much as isolation is important, it's not where you're meant to stay forever. There comes a time when you'll be called to step out of that solitude and share your gifts with the world. This is what I call the return. It's a powerful moment, one that's filled with both excitement and challenge. After spending so much time in isolation, it can feel overwhelming to step back into the world. You've changed, evolved, grown in ways that most people won't understand. You've gained wisdom, clarity, and a deep sense of purpose. But when you return to the world, you might find that things haven't changed as much as you have. The people around you might still be caught up in the same distractions, the same noise, the same superficial concerns. And this is where your true strength as a chosen one is tested, because it's easy to stay in isolation, where everything is aligned with your energy, where you don't have to deal with the chaos of the outside world. But your mission isn't to stay hidden. You've been given gifts, wisdom, and a purpose, and now it's time to share them. It's time to bring what you've learned in your solitude out into the world, where it can make an impact. But here's the thing, when you return, you don't have to do it all at once. You don't have to rush back into the crowd and try to change everything overnight. The return is a process, just like the isolation was. It's about finding the balance between solitude and connection, between inner work and outer action. You've spent the time in isolation building yourself. Now you'll spend time sharing that self with the world. And here's the deep question I want you to ask yourself. How will you bring your gifts into the world? What will you do with the wisdom you've gained? Because this is where your purpose really comes into focus. The things you've learned in isolation aren't meant to stay locked inside you. They're meant to be shared, to help others, to guide the world in some way. But it's up to you to figure out how to do that. Maybe it's through your work, your art, your relationships. Maybe it's through teaching, guiding, or leading others. Whatever form it takes, your gifts are needed. The world is waiting for you to step into your purpose. And when you do, you'll find that everything you went through in isolation was worth it. All the challenges, the loneliness, the self-reflection, it was all preparing you for this moment. So, as you return to the world, remember this: you are not the same person who went into isolation. You've evolved, grown, and now you're ready to share the growth with the world. Trust that the universe has been guiding you all along, and that everything you've experienced has been leading you to this moment. The world needs your gifts, your wisdom, your purpose. So step into it fully, knowing that you've been prepared for this all along.